Well, welcome back to another episode of LorcanaChats. I'm your host, Chris, aka Questing for Lore. And it's no secret that the Disney Lorcana community draws in all kinds of content creators. Some dig deep into the gameplay and strategy, some cover the latest news, and some, like my guest for this episode, focus on the voice of the community. Come listen in as I chat with the hosts of Vox Lorcana, Scott, Rebekah, and Daniel, and get the inside scoop on them and their show. Well, hello, Vox Lorcana. How are y'all doing tonight?
Doing good.
Awesome.
Great.
Nice. Awesome. Thank y'all for joining me. I really am super happy that I have all of you with me tonight. I thought that I was only going to have 2, but 3 is even better. It's awesome. Y'all want to kind of go around and introduce yourself a little bit? Scott?
Yes.
Sure. Hi. Cypher 1000, probably better known in real life as Scott. Been around gaming, well, since I was probably 4 years old. Been around TCGs since 1994. Started semi-professionally around them back in 2003 with Decipher, with Lord of the Rings, and eventually .hack. Kind of took a little bit of a break from gaming until 2014. Picked Magic back up again, and then once Lorcana hit, started running with that. So here we are.
Nice. Awesome. Daniel, how about you?
Well, Chris, it's great to see you and good to have us on the show again. I think, mainly Lorcana fanatics. My daughter Lily and I love Lorcana. And so, it's our first TCG. And so glad to be here.
Nice. Rebekah?
Yeah, I'm Rebekah Quests, and I have a little tiny bit of TCG background playing, playground Magic in high school when back in the 90s, but a huge Disney fan. And so when Disney Lorcana hit, I jumped on board right away, and I've been playing myself, and then also my son, who's 15 years old, plays with me, and he's kind of more on the competitive side. I'm a little bit more on the social side, so it's kind of fun having that dynamic between the two of us, plus something that we can do together as a mom and son. And that's me.
Nice. All right, so Daniel and Rebekah, y'all have been on the show before, so I kind of got the backstory for y'all. So Scott, you're kind of on point for this one, since you're the new guy here.
Sure.
So I'm curious, you kind of gave some of your basics. So when did you first hear about the game? How did you kind of originally get into it? What kind of background in TCGs do you have? Kind of elaborate a little bit more.
Sure. So from a background perspective, when I got into .hack and Lord of the Rings, it was really just as a local volunteer for my store. So they called it a product champion program. So every store would have kind of a local volunteer that would spearhead tournaments and community building for the game, and then we would report back on sales and just weekly or monthly activities. We would get promos and that kind of stuff, and then they would pull whenever they went to a convention like a San Diego Comic-Con or a Gen Con. They would pull their booth staff from like how .hack was being judged initially, and I was like, well, I think I can do this, and so I just said, sure, I'll organize some tournaments, and I did. And then one store became 2 stores, which became 5 stores, and we were running 4 to 6 tournaments per week in the Phoenix metro area for .hack. I ended up quickly becoming a regional judge and then a level 4 judge, which for them is world championship level. So that was my first world championship experience in judging. From there, transitioned into the Full Metal Alchemist TCG when that came out, and was the world championship judge for that. Besides just judging, I was a playtester for Decipher. So I did some playtesting for .hack. Also did some early play testing for Full Metal Alchemist and the believe it or not, the My Little Pony TCG that came out about 10 years ago or so.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was I didn't know about brony culture until I went to Gen Con and saw that tournament, and
Yeah.
that's a different kind of passion. I tell you what, they enjoy that property, and I'm glad that they did. So yeah, that's kind of my experiences from organized play and judging for the most part. I first heard about Lorcana, I believe it was an ICB2 article, where it said Ravensburger was starting a partnership with Disney, and the new product would be Disney Lorcana for their TCG. And really, it's not a new partnership because they already had the Villainous products since, what is it?
Right.
2019, 2020, something like that. In any case, that was kind of the first rumblings. It wasn't even the D23 cards. It was just the announcement, hey, this is coming. And that definitely piqued my interest in those of my friends from the industry, because we knew just Disney's name alone says, okay, this could be a thing if it's handled right.
Yep.
Then we saw the D23 cards, and you can kind of start maybe intuiting some things about how the game might work based off of the graphic design of the cards, not to mention the absolutely standout art, which is just no pun intended, but it's a huge hook. I mean, you see those images and it draws you into the world immediately. So when I saw those first 6 or 7 cards, I thought this really could be a thing, and it might be the right property, right time. Disney has the broad appeal, and by broad, I'm not just talking about age demographics, but across genders as well, across international boundaries. It is a truly international property. It's a multi-generational property. It doesn't matter. Really, everybody has heard of Disney. Many people enjoy Disney. And so with that kind of appeal, the first thought that went through my mind was, I wonder if my wife would feel comfortable playing.
There you
And
go. All right.
then she did. and that's like the once I finally got those they're some of the first images of the starter deck cards, the first things that start coming out, your flounders and things like that, right? Put together some air quote test decks and played with Abby. And while the hook wasn't set for her just yet at that point, because it was just black and white, I was just trying to get a feel, but for the rules, and this was after the rules were put out in the what is it, Game Trade Monthly, GTM, is that it? It was like that March, April before release. So we started playing there. That's when I realized the mechanics would definitely be something that she could enjoy. And then the rest is really history. We hit release at Gen Con. It was a smash success. It's slowed down a little bit since then, but I mean, really, the community just keeps going and going, and so here we are today.
Nice. Yeah, it's always interesting to hear from people that have kind of been there from the very beginning. There's so many different ranges. I talked to some people that they've only been playing the game for 6 months, and some people that were there like y'all that were there, before we even had a game. We're just like hanging on every single card reveal and trying to figure out, what it would even look like when it actually came out. So no, that's always cool. I appreciate the perspective. I didn't actually come in until Floodborne, and so I was a little behind the times for a lot of people. But yeah, it was it was the same kind of engagement. It was like it's Disney. You love Disney. You gotta kind of get pulled in by that, and then the whole TCG aspect of it, really reinforces it for a lot of people. It's interesting to see people coming from different perspectives too, right? You have a lot of Disney fans that come to the game, and then you have a lot of TCG fans that come to the game, and it leads to all different kind of skill levels. So it's really cool to
Sure.
see the variety
Mhm.
and everything. So,
Absolutely.
and Rebekah and Daniel, correct me if I'm wrong, y'all were in the same kind of boat. Y'all came in kind of before the game, or I kind of forget, honestly.
I heard about the Gen Con incident. And that's kind of that's how I found out about the game, actually, was because that was circling around socials, and like I saw the video of the stampede and stuff, and I was like, wait, what is this? And so I wasn't able to get cards though when it was the hobby store release. And so I actually the first starter deck that I bought was when people were selling stuff on Whatnot a lot in the beginning, if you remember that.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
That was the only way. So I bought one starter deck off of Whatnot, and then when it hit like the wide retail release, I at midnight was on Target.com and DisneyStore.com, and through one of those sites, I was able to get some cards. So that was with the first chapter. That was when I started playing.
Nice.
The fact that you got it on Target online is amazing.
Did, yes. And what was crazy is I actually remember being on my laptop at midnight or whatever and like watching things go out of stock,
Yep.
like
Oh,
in
yeah.
real time, and
Yeah,
things
yeah.
selling out and going, oh, maybe I should have bought more.
It's funny to me that you saw the videos of Gen Con and took from
Yeah.
that and said, that looks fun.
Well, not the stampede part,
Sure.
but it definitely was like, wow, there's a huge interest here. There must be something to this game. I need to check it
Yeah.
out. And yeah, and I mean, like you said, here we are, and the community's still going strong and
Yeah.
everything. I don't know,
Yeah.
Daniel, I forget when you started.
Yeah. So my next door neighbor actually, in those early days, right? So this was a year before Gen Con, was like, hey, Disney's coming out with this game. I'm like, cool. TCGs. I'm like, cool. And then I was like, let me know more. Like, and then I forgot. And then one weekend I was like, hey, what are you doing this weekend? He's like, oh, this Disney game that I mentioned a while back, they're having their like hobby store release. I'm like, what's an LGS, right? What's a hobby store? And so I did enjoy him for that. But then, he brought 2 starter decks back, and I was like, this is really cool. Try to go find product, couldn't find it. His brother-in-law found product at Walmart in Denver and shipped me all 3 of the first starter decks. And I mean, I definitely overpaid in terms of shipping. But guess what? That was the way you got product. And then that following Saturday, so that I think we got it in on Friday. Lily and I opened them up. We like watched a YouTube video, the one from Eric, and she basically learned how to play the game, like picked it up like that. We showed up at an LGS the next day with our neighbor and his daughter, and the rest is history. So
Nice.
That's
And they
cool.
had it going
I love
that
hearing
early?
everyone's origin stories.
I know, right? It's so cool. It's interesting. Did they have like at y'all's LGSs? Did they have something going that early, or was it just kind of like just show up and if somebody happened to be playing,
from what I
Yeah,
recall, I
ours
mean, the
did.
organized kit was already there. I mean, I remember showing up and getting a promo
Okay.
card, I feel, from that first week.
Yeah, I showed up by myself at a game store that I had never been in before, and I think I had gotten the starter deck like that morning, and it was the day of their first league night, and I had been in the store earlier that week, and I was like, "Are you guys doing Lorcana?" And they're like, "Yeah, we don't have any product though." And I remember playing the tournament organizer because there was an odd number, and I had the of the round 1 buy because of the numbers, and so the tournament organizer played with me so that I could still play the game, and I just had the starter deck, and that was it, and he had made some kinda crazy Amber Steel Three Musketeers deck, and from the first chapter, and just, like, walloped me, and I was like, "Oh, okay."
Everybody starts somewhere, right?
Yep.
That was fun. I think I'll go die now.
But I still got, because it was the bye, I still counted as 2 wins. So
Sure.
I think I ended up, there was only like 8 people there, and I ended up coming in like 4th because of that. So
Yep. Up in Phoenix, I played at Amazing Discoveries Glendale. We're fortunate to have Amazing Discoveries. They've got, I want to say, 5 or 6 stores in the state now, a pretty significant entity around here. When I moved down to Tucson, there was another, actually, that's where Amazing Discovery started. So just kind of transitioned right into their league. But yeah, that first day, they had the kit. We had promos. It was, everybody got a starter deck and 2 packs. That's all they were allowed to buy. That was the allotment. And we were happy to have it. Or like we were just thrilled to be able to get that.
Mm-hmm.
The person, and it was just open free play. They did the there was kind of suggested do these things for points type of a thing. And so they just let us do that to our heart's content. Like, do whatever you can in 2.5 hours. So we did. And the guy to my right, in his pack, in his starter deck, he cracked the Enchanted Elsa and went home.
Wow.
So welcome to TCGs, man.
Wow.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy. Yeah, it's interesting to hear stories about, those early days where people were, getting those enchanteds. And, you have to wonder if it was like that much more exciting because it was a new game and everybody was like, oh my gosh, getting these special cards right off the bat is, like this huge, amazing thing. But I mean, not that getting enchanteds now isn't awesome too, but,
Just having any cards at that point in the game was amazing.
Well, yeah, that too. Yep.
Yeah.
Can't believe the number of commons and uncommons I paid money for.
Yes.
Back in the day. As someone new to TCGs, I was like, oh, you have this card? Like, yeah, I'll buy that for 50 cents.
Yeah.
There's like a bulk. We have, now we're collecting all the bulk that we give away to other kids. So yeah, it's great.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's cool to hear stories about people that are doing that. Some people are fortunate enough to be able to, buy a lot of packs and buy a lot of starter decks and everything now. And actually being able to take those and give it to other people. You hear about people giving them away in the parks, even, little decks and stuff like that. And it's a really interesting way. And I've never been a part of another TCG community, so I don't know if this kind of thing happens in other games, but it's interesting to me to see that there's like so much kind of outreach among the community to say, let's get other people interested in this outside of just, the LGS experience and kind of really try to bring people in because, hey, it's Disney, it's cool. Look at Disney stuff, this fun little Disney card game. But
when I went to Disneyland for the Quest in the Park day that we did before the North American Championship, I took some starter decks that I had opened the booster packs, but and so I had just the starter decks, and I had like 2 or 3 that I took in my backpack. And while I was walking around Disneyland and like talking to people online or whatever, I would hand them out. And I met like a guy who was there with his wife and daughter, and he is like, what? He saw me because I had some cards out to have a character side. And he was like, what do you have there? Because he said he played Magic. And I was like, oh, let me tell you. And here's the starter deck for you to, take home. And so that was really cool to be able to do that. I don't know, like, Scott, because you've been a part of other TCG communities, is that something that you like saw a lot?
So historically, not a ton. Yeah, not a bunch. I think I've seen some kind of a little bit more recently with Magic. It's actually something that's kind of been a little bit divisive in the Magic community, and that's something they call secret layers, where they're going outside of the Magic IP and taking other IPs like SpongeBob SquarePants and Fortnite and Arcane and making either small sets, or in some cases, like with Final Fantasy and Spider-Man coming out, they're going to have full, tentpole releases with these products. And so people have been kind of evangelizing through that. Like maybe they didn't know Magic, but they like Spider-Man or whatever. The Lord of the Rings, they actually did some sets for.
Yeah.
And so there's been some evangelization through those types of means. Also, their recent, they call them Magic Cons, but basically it's sort of like the North American Continental Championships. or Pokemon regionals or worlds, sort of like that. And there's kind of a more festival atmosphere, and so there's a little bit more evangelization that goes on with people going through the convention centers that I see there. But I don't remember ever creating kind of trial starter decks, if you will. That's a product that would be shipped to stores. So stores would have kind of welcome packs, if you would, for newer players. But I don't remember just regular rank and file Magic players creating them so that they could give to people that came in. I don't remember seeing much of that at all.
Interesting. Yeah, I kind of figured it was something a little unique to the game, but yeah, it's cool to hear that and I hope it's something that continues too, as the game grows and and I think hopefully, fingers crossed, it gets more presence in the parks and everything. We'll see, rather than just one little spot in one store like it is now. But yeah, I think I mean, so far the game seems like it's only growing. I know, and Scott, you kind of mentioned this. It's kind of hit, and I think this is something that I've seen other people talking about as far as like other TCGs. You get about a year in or a year and a half, and things kind of start like mellowing a little bit. You don't have like the initial excitement of, oh my gosh, it's this new game and everybody's coming to it. Now it's kind of settling into more of a rhythm, with all the new releases and and you hope that that kind of excitement still, it keeps going and it keeps building as the game goes on. And, hopefully in, God, how old is Magic now? 30 years? Something like that.
Like 30.
20, yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully in that amount of time, Lorcana will be just as big. And, you've got the power of Disney behind it and they're not going anywhere. So, we'll see.
Truth.
It turns out the Disney brand has staying power.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's shocking, isn't it? Yeah. All right. Well, so I do want to talk about one of our main topics. I introduced y'all as Vox Lorcana. So let's talk about the show. So I'm not exactly sure how to describe this. It's not quite a podcast. It's a live show, but it's so okay. So how would you all describe the show?
Scott, you take this one.
Yeah,
sure. Well, it started as a kind of talk radio concept. Daniel was already doing the Twitter Spaces, which is kind of in that same vein, and I wanted to be able to do something along those lines. I had done I call it nerd media. I was a podcaster and streamer before, just in games and comics and all that kind of stuff. I wanted to do something with Lorcana, but I wasn't sure what. And I heard him doing that. It's like, yeah, I want to do something similar, but he's already doing it, and I don't want to step on his toes. But I reached out to him to see, hey, maybe we can pair up and do something a little bit more structured than what you're currently doing. And he was amenable to that. We had a 1-2 hour conversation, Daniel, to see if we would vibe and if we liked what we were hearing, something like that.
That's about right. Yeah.
And then Daniel said, how do you feel about bringing in somebody else who'd like to have a woman's voice on the show? And I said, yep, that sounds awesome. Because what I really wanted to do was basically have it be a show for the community, about the community, by the community. And that's kind of where even the Vox name comes out. It's the voice of Lorcana, but it's not necessarily our voices, but the voice of the people, the voice of the players. And so whatever's going on in the community, we wanted to give voice to that. We kind of workshopped 5 or 10 different candidates and settled on Rebekah as our first, and we reached out to her and she was open to it. So we kind of went with that. And Chris, I think you were in the first or second show, if I remember right.
Yeah.
And one of your comments was about the advertisements. We would have to pay the bills and have these fake advertisements in between segments. And so that was a bit of a differentiator. But doing it on Spaces allowed us to really bring in the community voice very easily on the fly. And so that's really what we wanted it to be, was just a kind of a community radio talk show type thing. We've sort of changed formats more recently because Spaces I could no longer support for various reasons. So we've ended up switching to streaming directly to Twitch and to YouTube, which has been wonderful on a number of different levels. It's been good to have a few more technological tools at our disposal at this point. One thing we did lose, however, is the impromptu nature of bringing guests online as easily as Spaces would allow. We can still do it, like we can, but it takes a few more steps than what Spaces would. The intent is the same. We still want to try and discuss the topics of the day, maybe not the competitive aspect as much. That's not where I live. I don't know that that's necessarily where my co-hosts live. There's plenty of other content for competitive play, to be honest. But if someone's doing something interesting in the community, or someone did something interesting, we want to highlight that. And so that's what we have done and what we will try and continue to do. Plus, quite frankly, with my co-hosts and I think we have a diverse set of backgrounds. We have a diverse approach to the game and kind of what we want to get out of it. And so I think we can really approach the game from different perspectives, and that leads to just different questions and in a broader conversation. So hopefully we can bring something that's maybe not necessarily just the standard, and I'm not even sure the standard is the right word, but people default to the competitive. And I love competitive play. It's fine. I want it to continue. I want it to thrive, but it's only one part of it. And so I like the fact that the three of us all approach the game from a slightly different angle and can bring those perspectives to the conversation.
Yeah, it's really
the only
cool
thing
to
I'd add to
see-
Scott
oh,
is
sorry. Go ahead, Daniel.
Yeah, no, the only thing I'd add is, I think part of the Spaces part was in the pandemic, social audio became a really big deal, right? In a lot of communities. And I saw the power of how just our voices, right? It lent itself to a different kind of experience. Unfortunately, apps like Clubhouse, sort of still kind of around, but evolved. And then, I think for me, it was seeing, okay, where is the most active conversation about Lorcana happening? And I was quite surprised. Much of it was on Twitter.
Yep.
And so it kind of became I think probably 6 months into the game of like, let's try this out and see if this is a way for me to engage the community, because at that point, both Lily and I already felt like we'd received so much support from the community. And so, I think the trial runs of the first kind of doing a few and seeing both competitive players as well as new to TCG players pop into sort of my morning commute shows, that really was kind of the validation that there's a space for this kind of conversation. And what I love about our makeup and composition, I think some of it was very intentional. But we've also kind of stumbled on it, was, I wanted a co-host like Scott who had deep TCG experience, right? It lets us, if you look at our Discord group chat, like whenever there's something happening in the community, I get to like, hey guys, like, look at this. And it's like, what's your quick hot take, Scott? And it helps me kind of level set as someone who's brand new, right? And again, I think Rebekah and I are in very different spaces too. And I think it allows us to have, I think, a pretty nice pulse on the overall community, from competitive to casual to social. That's something I think that's really special about who we are, and I think the conversations that we at least internally have as we think about what goes into our monthly show.
Nice.
Yeah, what people don't see behind the scenes, these two keep me honest. They rein me in, and that's a good thing. Like, that's genuinely a good thing. There's been at least 2, if not 3 different occasions where I've wanted to go in direction A, and they said, what if we didn't? What if we went in direction B? Or what if we went? Yeah. and the show is better for it. It genuinely is. I don't think we've ever been angry with each other at all. It's just if there was one time I was angry, it's circumstance. It had nothing to do with them. I needed to go. I went on like a 10 or 12 mile bike ride and then came back and said, okay, here's a different direction. And we got it done, and it worked. It worked pretty well, actually. But yeah, they definitely help keep the show balanced, and it would not be nearly what it is without their input and inclusions and comments, and frankly, their restraints on me. So yeah.
A nice balance. Yeah.
Yep.
Very much.
Awesome. So I'm curious, the choice behind doing an audio only versus audio and video, or how did that kind of come about?
I mean, it started just as audio because, like, generally talk radio isn't a video format, right? Like, the audio is the nature of the format. Part of it is when you add video, that's just one more thing that can go wrong, one more thing that you have to tech rehearse for, so to speak. And when we've got different guests coming in, it's hard enough getting audio right with that alone. Anybody who's done content for any amount of time knows if something can go wrong, it will at the worst possible time. Like, eventually it's
Yep.
something's going to break. So the less variables, the better. And frankly, I don't want to have to do my hair for a video. So there's that. And that honestly might be the biggest driver. No, the video is just a hassle that I didn't feel like we needed. Maybe one day, like, I'm not super opposed to it, maybe, but I'm not rushing towards it. In some ways, it was a matter of convenience. Like, it's not that I don't want to put in effort, but we are grown adults with families and responsibilities, and I want to enjoy the game and enjoy doing this and enjoy my wife and enjoy dinner. And so what can I do to produce a show that works without 7 headaches? So the lack of video and just going audio only is kind of an answer to that.
And honestly, I think that there's something about it being audio only without video that brings, I mean, not just different vibes than, people who are doing video podcasts or video shows, but also that for me at least, it really does help kind of focus the conversation on the conversation itself, right? And so whatever the topic is at hand, and again, the name of the show being the voice of Lorcana, that's what we're kind of focusing the show on, is what's going on in the community and what are the different perspectives and opinions that Scott and Daniel and myself bring, and then other people from the community that we have on as guests or people from the audience that we're able to bring in. What do their voices lend to whatever topic is at hand? And there's something about it being audio only that I think you lose when you bring video into the equation. And I mean, I would never say never to doing video, but I think that there is something, there's a reason why talk radio is still out there, and people still enjoy it. And there's a reason for that. And I think that it is something unique as in the Disney Lorcana, like, content creation space too, that we bring.
Yeah. So you're saying I should release this episode as audio only then?
Audio only.
It would be on brand.
Sorry. I had to get it in there.
No, I think, again, there's different mediums, there's different formats. I mean, part of it is convenience. Part of it was we launched on Spaces, and guess what? Spaces is audio only. And there is a community appeal to that. I think recently another community member decided to launch, Monday morning Spaces, and definitely more focused on the competitive side, right? Jeremy, with Mox Jeremy, right? And he does his thing with Zan, and I think with one of them they had like 90 people, 90 listeners. I mean, it's incredible. Early on in the days, I definitely knew that there were some of my shows where it was 5 or 6 people listening, but you know what? You can listen anonymously, and I
Sure.
know Steve was listening, right? So that was the encouragement I needed to keep going. And so, yeah,
Nice.
Ravensburger's always listening, right? And it's good.
That they
So
are.
Yeah.
I'm
the community
always
voice is
watching,
important.
right?
Always,
Mhm.
always watching. Um,
Yes.
So I'm also curious about the cadence. Y'all do it about once a month, right? Is
Mhm.
that kind of playing into the whole like we have lives outside of all this, or was it a choice for making it that cadence?
For me, it was.
Yes to all. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, all
I
the
mean,
above,
look,
huh?
I mean, we just heard from Jared Ray Citizen of Lorcana, like we're gonna do this right until it's not fun anymore. And I think there's a
Right.
labor in doing something weekly.
Yeah.
I would, call out, I think part of the value of what we bring. And, Scott really is the mastermind behind the technology and the
Mhm.
scripting and thinking about how to pull a show together. I don't
You
think
make
we
a
could
face,
have,
Scott, but it's true.
yeah,
I saw you make a face.
Yeah, you say
it's
mastermind, and I'm
100%
like, did you see my show prep from last show? No, because I
uh,
didn't 15
you
minutes
know, I
beforehand.
mean, again, I think, but let's be honest. I mean, Rebekah, right? I mean, like you are a content creator in your own right. I don't know how you do it magically as a almost like a full-time job. I mean, you're incredible on
Mhm.
Instagram, but you extend even beyond that platform.
Yep.
I don't know that we would have been able to bring you into this, right? And in the same way, from a commitment standpoint,
Right.
because and so I think there's a functional piece to this being monthly. I think there are definitely moments when we're like, the community is speaking and we've got to say something, so we'll do something ad hoc, right? But yeah, the monthly cadence is for sanity. Absolutely.
It really was. I've said many times, making content is hard. Continuing to make content is harder. We discussed really early on, we didn't want to overcommit. We wanted to make a schedule that we thought we could adhere to. We can always do more if the schedule allows, but it's hard to pull back the reins.
Mhm.
And so once you've set the expectation of weekly, there's a pressure to do it weekly. And if you have to pull back monthly, oh, the show's failing, something's going on. No, I didn't want any of that. We have a hard enough time doing monthly as it is, to be to be honest. We had to miss once
Especially
because of the
during
holiday.
TLC season, right?
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
That's tough.
so monthly kind of fits, and it lets us, frankly, with the community, it lets us be kind of the cozy warm blanket. We're not something that you schedule your life around. It's like, oh yeah, there's that show, I can go ahead and jump in. Or because it's audio only, they can treat it as a podcast through YouTube. They don't have to set their alarm for something like this. We are not necessarily appointment listening, so to speak, but we are the comfortable show that every month you can count on us being there. And then sometimes more, like Daniel said, if something's happening, we can jump on earlier. We did a double show or in January, one right
Mhm.
after North American Continental Championship. Had Zach on. That was a fantastic show. Very glad that we did that. Um, so yeah, it's kind of as something is topical, we reserve the right to jump in. But for our regular shows, first Wednesday of every month, man, let's just keep it steady, and that's what we can do. That's what we can do successfully, and so that's what we'll continue to do.
Nice.
I think another interesting thing about doing it monthly is like there are so many hot takes, right? Out there on things that
Yeah.
happen and people like immediately jumping in. And not to say that we won't ever have hot takes, because I know I definitely do. But I think that going on a monthly cadence, that there are some topics that are better approached without having such a hot take, right?
Mhm.
And so having some space between when things are happening in the community and when we talk about on the show, I think actually allows for there to be a little bit more measured conversation around some of the things that go on. And I think that that's good because, the internet moves so quickly, that there's something nice about that.
Yeah, definitely allows y'all to be a little bit more purposeful in what kind of conversations you have and
Mhm.
who you have on. It's not like, oh, I'm going to have a whole bunch of competitive people on because we got some bands and we need to talk about that kind of stuff. It's more
Right.
of like, later on, after things cool off a little bit, let's get some perspective on things. Yeah, no, I get it. That's a great approach. I appreciate y'all for trying to focus on that kind of thing and not try to be reactionary as much.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously, like you said, you do have some times where you do hop in and have probably some hot takes now and then, but or card reveals like y'all got to do for last
Yeah.
set.
Yes.
For the what was it, Gantu, right? Yeah.
Gun
We're bringing
to.
Gantu back, baby.
Nice. That was a
That's
high
awesome.
quality card reveal, by the way. I like that one. That was great.
Thank you.
I'll make sure and link back to that video in the notes for this one, so that everybody
Yes.
can get a chance to experience the amazing Gantu reveal. So yeah, no, that's cool. Like I said, I appreciate y'all for taking that kind of approach to being that kind of being both casual but like purposeful in the things that you talk about, and having people on that are kind of supportive of that. Y'all have had so many people on already, which is amazing. I appreciate y'all bringing in different voices. It's not just competitive players. It's not just
Right.
content creators. It's all sorts of people. Um, so yeah, it's great, and like I said, I really appreciate it. So I try to listen when I
That's
can.
great.
It's
Sure.
right around bedtime for my kids, so
Mhm.
usually I'll
Yeah.
have you in
Yeah.
one ear and be listening, trying to get everything taken care of. But again, plays into the whole family aspect, right? A lot of us
Yep.
Mhm.
are right around the age where we have like little kids or kind of a little bit older kids, and um, and just trying to figure out the balance to the whole thing. Not just
Yeah.
creating content, as content creators, but also consuming the content. There's only so much time in the day. But
Yeah.
but yeah, it's I can't tell you the number of times that I've been like walking around the grocery store listening to a podcast, because that's kind
Mhm.
of the only downtime I have, that and driving back and forth to places. So,
Right.
but yeah, no, it's good to have, kind of a good representation of the community, kind of in this kind of a setting. Um, so speaking of the community, I do want to kind of get y'all's take on, kind of the role of content creators in the community. Rebekah, you've got kind of your own stuff as well, so you've got kind of a little bit different perspective on it. But I'm interested to think or to see what y'all think is something that we as content creators can be doing to kind of help build up the community, and bring those voices, the voices of Lorcana up to the surface so that more people can hear from them.
I think one of the most important things that we can do is share our experience through the game. And if we enjoy something, we can share that joy, and that's contagious, and other people can feel safe to enjoy that same thing, or to feel safe to enjoy whatever they like about the game. If people are struggling with something, and what really comes to mind here is the first set championships and people's experiences with higher level competition, um, knowing that it's okay to struggle, that it's also not impossible to succeed. And there's been several stories out there of people where it was some of their first high level competition, and they top aided. Some of them coming home with the mats. Um, so one of the roles is we can put the word out there that you're not alone. Whatever you happen to be feeling, you're not alone, and that it's okay to approach the game and the product how you want to, whether that's collecting, whether it's high level competition, whether it's group play, whether it's just repping your favorite movie, whatever you want to do, go do that. And you have space to do that. And I think community content creators can really provide in some ways that space and help people feel validated in that type of enjoyment, whatever it may be.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I think there's something about when you're a content creator of being willing to be a little bit vulnerable. I think that is I think at least the people that I know that I connect with as somebody, of other content creators, like that there's that identifying with somebody's experience, that draws you in. And like Scott was saying, like that no matter in the highs and the lows, that you're not alone. And then being able to be a little bit vulnerable and share different experiences, like even like that first set champs that happened, like I remember I went online and was like, yeah, that was scary, and I went into the bathroom and almost threw up, and wanted to cry. And I had so many people though that responded to that, what I shared, saying, oh my goodness, I felt that way too, and that they didn't feel alone. And so I think that that's really important. And then I think the secondary thing that I would say for content creators is just being like the ambassadors of like what we want this community to be, right? Like, so being welcoming, being encouraging and supportive, and all of those things that we want to see in the Disney Lorcana space, to be that and like model it. And that we know that people in small or large followings, for anyone who's doing content creation, people are looking at you and what you are modeling for the community. And so I think that there's with great power comes great responsibility kind of thing, but there's so much truth to that as content creators, that we are really there is a responsibility there to model for other people what we want this community to be.
Yep. And that's something that I think folks like Citizens of Lorcana and the Illuminateers have done so well from the very beginning. Live, Laugh, Lorcana, other folks of that nature. Right from the outset, they said, this is how we want this community to be. We want it to be welcoming. We want everybody to have a space at the table. And then they lived and exuded those values consistently through their play and through their content. So they kind of set the tone early. And then you had people, they're not exclusively content creators, but you've got Maelstrom, right? Who from the beginning, their players said, we don't want this to be a game where sharks come in and just kind of shark their way through competition. We want people to feel safe at the table. And if anybody doesn't feel that way, come find us and we will advocate for you. So most people that are in content creation seem to have a similar through line with kind of raising and fostering the community that we want. And that community is, hey, if you're not a jerk and you have Disney Lorcana cards, let's come and play. Whatever it is.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is, well, first off, right, anyone can create, right? I think that is what has shifted, right? I mean, truly. And I'd like to think that I sit very much in some of the edges of what you would normally define a content creator as, right? Lily and I don't really run much of a YouTube. And I think there's a season, for that in our future one day. It's just not our focus, right? Right now, a lot of the focus has been around creating a space for the community. Things that have really struck me were when we went to DLC Chicago, how many people I played against that did not know who the Illuminateers were. That really blew my mind, right? Like I couldn't believe, because it's the Illuminateers. I mean, Liam's right there on stage.
Right.
And it's like, you don't know who they are, right? Like, and I think I benefited from, obviously Illuminateers being local to me. So they had both a local presence and resonance. The first time I walked into a set championship, the Illuminateer videos, YouTube videos were playing on the screens. And, I think that's something that really, I think if you go back to that first Gen Con experience, there are a lot of people who love Disney Lorcana. and they don't engage right on the social platforms that we are on. And so I think there's tremendous space for more content creators to at the end of the day, like, what is their role? I mean, their role is to tell their stories, right? Their role is to chronicle that. I do think that those of us who've been around long enough, I think we also feel a sense of, dare I say, duty and responsibility to protect the game, right? And I think that's just natural, right? You've been around long enough. You're like, this is what the vision, this is what we wanted it to be, and you don't remember what it's like, before blank, right?
Right.
Um, I, but I think that part of the creator community is to help the community not just process through, right, things like bans, but also to have fun. I mean, like, again, Rebekah, your content is it vibes so well. I think there you create your audience, and there's a great lane for that. And again, I think that's the beauty of a diversity of content creators. And so, for anyone who is listening to this, I mean, I really hope you take away that there is a space for you. It's a matter of, do you have the time? Do you have an idea? And test it out, and you will find a following. You'll find a niche, right? That is the wonderful part of something like this, because, gosh, I mean, there are so many people who love this game.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah.
So I'm also curious, shifting from more of a kind of I guess a global level of being, content creators and their stuff being out there. As far as like a local level, what kind of recommendations do y'all have for people that are trying to really grow a community around them? At that local level, or regional or whatever it happens to be.
You don't have enough time for my response.
Well, I mean, you could
that.
rant all you want. I can't guarantee it'll all make it in, but yeah.
Sure. I guess my some of my best advice would be be consistent, be an advocate, make it known that Lorcana is a game for whoever enjoys Lorcana. If you enjoy Disney Lorcana, if you enjoy Disney properties at all, if you enjoy TCGs, if you want to come and find out what the game is about, make sure there is space at the table for anybody and that they're all welcome. One of the things that Rebekah had said that she does and others have done is have kind of sample decks or starter decks to give out. So doing that is fine, and a good way to help evangelize so that they can walk away with something. And that's another good suggestion, is everybody walks away with something every time at weekly play. You don't want folks to go home empty-handed, whether it's a promo or a pin or whatever the case may be, a pack. Very strong advocate for everybody walks away with something. And just find different ways to have fun. Make space for everybody and all the different ways to engage. You're going to have some competitive players. Make sure there's competition going on. You're going to have people that just want to show up with their Aladdin deck and play that. Make sure that there's a space that they feel encouraged and welcome and safe to do that. And so that maybe you have a movie night for that. Maybe you do just a game of a night of multiplayer and everybody brings like a shift leader deck or just plays a four-person game or two-headed giant. Maybe you do a Disney bounding or a cosplay night and bring that in. There's different ways to encourage, and or you can go as extravagant as what Enchanted Kim did and have a Princess Tea Party that had people come from multiple states and I think Canada ? Do I remember that right?
No, I don't remember.
I might be wrong on that.
So,
Maybe I'm
I'm
giving
not
her
sure.
too much credit. That seems impossible, by the way. But you could do something along those lines. You can do what Daniel did and facilitated not a play date, but
Learn to play.
Yeah, learn to play
Yeah.
event. There's all sorts of stuff from the small up to people organizing monthly tournament circuits, if you will, for their local community. Any and all of it is good. Talk to your community, engage with your store, find out what the needs are. And then where your interests meet those needs or can meet those needs, go and do that. You don't have to do everything, but everybody can do something. And so when you find where your interest aligns with there is a need, that's where you're probably going to have the most success.
Well said. Yeah. I mean, I think being consistent is key. And I think the area I spend a lot of time thinking about, and I just don't have the time to really dig in yet, is because my work's just too busy, is, how do you build the next generation? I mean, so many of the competitive players that I've engaged with through this game, they all started at some age, right? They started at 9 or 10, in some cases, right, as early as then. And I think about, obviously, like Lily. It's like, but how do I help create more of that? Especially if those kids out there don't have TCG parents, right? I think that's something I think a lot about, and it just blows my mind. I'll share one quick story. This most recent Saturday, the closest LGS for Lily and I. Lately, we've been traveling and doing other things and haven't had as much time to go back to that one. But that's really that's the first store we've played at, and they actually moved even closer. So there's like no excuse for us not to go there unless there's another prior commitment. Lily was pretty tired. She had homework, and so we have some rules, right? If you've got homework that you haven't finished, you can't go to league. And so I went, and again, I went for the first time in probably over a month, and it was the first time a grandpa who apparently played Star Wars Unlimited had his daughter who had twin boys who were 7 years old. And it was so cute because these boys, I think they had come from some other recital or some event, because this kid was totally dressed up in a little suit. It was adorable.
Cute.
And he had a little briefcase and with his cards. I'm like, whoa, who are you? You're a card shark. You're going to just like sweep us. It was the first time they had ever shown up at that store. And it's not like that LGS really like advertises Lorcana as a thing. I mean, there's a very consistent community. Like, I'm like, how did you find us? Like, and like with all of the efforts and all the things that we do try to do, that I try to work with multiple LGSs on, like, how did you show up? And so there's still this mystery of like, how do people connect to this game? And so for me, just, I think the advice is, when people do show up, make sure they have such an amazing experience that they come back.
Yep.
And what I would say is, I'm so proud of, again, I think we have such a great local community that they had a fantastic time, even watching really competitive players sit down and play those boys, and they had a great time, right? They were running like these aggro decks, evasive aggro decks. And I'm just like, this is so cool. Like, you've only been playing this game for about a month. This is your first LGS experience. And they had a wonderful time. I pointed them to other stores that we also partner with. They showed up the next day and they brought even more of their family. So it was like
Aw.
a multi-generational family
That's
experience
awesome.
at Game Castle Austin. They actually posted a picture about it and I'm like,
That's so
there's a
cool.
hunger for community. There's a hunger for this space. That's the part I'm really passionate about, right? Is just, again, how do we create a space, a third place, right? How do we create this third place experience that really helps people connect with each other in person, not over screens? I love that. So,
And that
Yeah.
it's really important. And I think it's even more important. I think it may be magnified for the younger generation. There's a story. So the kind of the most well-known creator in Magic, Tolarian Community College, the professor, that's his shtick, his persona. When he first played or started playing, not long after that, I think it was his father passed away. And it was somebody else who played Magic around him who also lost his father that helped him through that time. Basically, it was kind of a lifeline for all intents and purposes. And he credits some of those early days, credits Magic to help get him through some of that. I know TCGs were not exactly looked fondly upon by the in crowd when I was in high school. So if we can show people that it's perfectly normal and enjoyable and okay to engage in these things, kind of give them that safe space and that encouragement. It doesn't mean that they're not going to suffer hard knocks, but at least they know that there is a community they can turn to where it's okay to be themselves. and it's okay to enjoy the thing that they love. So yeah, that's a huge thing.
Yeah. And I think kind of sort of along those same lines is, for when it comes to finding community, like not every store maybe is going to be the right community for you. And I
Mhm.
think that that's okay. And that might be hard sometimes. And, but finding the right community for you. And I think it is difficult to find ways to balance all different kinds of ways of playing the game in a single store, right? I get that there's a lot of challenge that comes with how do we balance, the highly competitive with the super social players that want to show up with theme decks, and some stores are going to figure it out and some stores maybe are going to lean more one way or the other. And so I think knowing what kind of community you want to be a part of is good, and to find it and to not you know, go to one store and say, "Oh, this is not the right community," and then don't, go back to any store again. Like keep looking, and hopefully, I know not everyone is maybe in an area where there are a lot of game stores around them, but hopefully that there could be a community, or like there's a group of friends that I have that just literally go to a boba shop and play Lorcana every week, and we call it Bobacana.
Nice.
And it's become
Nice.
kind of like our own little weekly league, unofficial, and we have a lot of fun, and kind of we're all on the same page of how we want to approach the game and how we want to have fun. And so that's kind of become our little community. And it's not at an LGS, but we all met through an LGS and ended up playing Bobacana.
Nice. Yeah, it's cool to hear that there's other options, right? I mean, it makes sense. You just get together with a group of friends and play some, but it's
Yeah.
it's so easy for a lot of us to think, oh, okay, there's DLCs, there's official events, and then there's just LGSs, and that's it. That's the only places where the community exists. But I mean, it's at the kitchen table, it's sitting around
Yes.
drinking
Yeah.
boba with friends. And in the parks,
Yep.
people play in the parks all the time. It can be just about anywhere that you want to play, and it doesn't necessarily have to be like just these specific places. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
I
it's definitely
I would
encouraging.
argue Rebekah's experience playing in a boba shop or over the kitchen table, as you mentioned, that's more where the community is actually built. It's not necessarily at the game store. I mean, when you think about it, uh, the first time you go into a game store has got to be such a foreign experience for many players. For some people, maybe they see it as their Disneyland, that as their safe space, but they might have also been going to game stores for years and years. But the first time you go to play, it's just a different environment. But then you can come back to your home or go out for coffee or whatever, and start building up those relationships where the community actually lies, where it takes place. We've had weddings in our local community already. We've had children born in our local community. Um, Eventually, there will be somebody that passes away whenever that occurs. Like, that's just part of life. Um, and we'll turn to not just our family, but some of our Lorcana friends as well. We end every show with Lorcana means family. I believe it to my core. Um, I think the community happens not just at the game store, but really kind of every place else besides the game store as well.
That's like after at the North American Championships, Scott and his wife was there as well. And after the last night, a bunch of people went out to dinner afterwards,
Yep.
and just sitting around a table and talking and chatting about Lorcana and not Lorcana and all different kinds of things, and just sharing a meal together. It's like, and Scott had some great reflections on that experience. It's like, yeah, I mean, the event itself is fantastic, but also, or I should say, and also,
Right.
moments like that outside of official sanctioned events is where the community really is forged.
Yep. Yep. And I hear so many stories about that kind of stuff where, you started out playing the game, but then you could get these, whole communities and these relationships built around it. And, suddenly it's like, oh, okay, now it's a community that just happens to play Lorcana. versus
Yes.
about the game and then the community around it, which is super awesome to me. I think that's amazing that happens. So, and now we've got even more sets coming. We've got set 8 coming up in a
Yeah,
couple of
buddy.
months, I guess. It seems
Jafar's
like it
going down.
Oh,
never
man, it's
ends.
coming.
So yeah, I
Yep.
mean, I'm looking forward to
Nice.
another Illumineers quest. I can't wait to see
Me
how that turns
too.
out. Yeah. I'm glad they kind of
So
keep it a
good.
little secret. It's not like here's what the gameplay is going to be like. It's more of like, okay, here it is, enjoy. Which is great. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I mean, I know I think the card reveals should be starting up here. Well, not shortly, but after a little while, I guess. So, but yeah, I'm always always excited for card reveal season and kind of trying to keep up with the fire hose. That it's the craziness of it
Yes.
all. I don't know if they're doing it as condensed as before, but yeah, it's a lot to keep up with. So
It was a lot. It's always a
Sure.
lot.
it is. And I'm curious, Scott, especially with your background, um, is there anything that y'all think would be, well, okay, so first, y'all think would be fun to bring to the game, and second, you think shouldn't be brought to the game? Because I've gotten spicy takes both ways from people in the past.
Mm.
So what I this is just speaking for me personally. What I would love to see brought to the game is a different card treatment besides just foils and enchanted. So something like a 50 or 60 card subset maybe that have either alternate art, alternate foiling, something that is different about them that still makes it collectible, that maybe you get one in every 4 packs or one in every 6 packs, something along those lines. um, I don't need there to be a ton of monetary value. I'm looking more for the experience. I would like to see the packs be a little bit more exciting to open, because let's say somebody buys one box, right? And maybe that's all they can buy, other than maybe a pack a week if they're doing weekly play or something like that. So they get one booster box. You want to make sure that experience of cracking those 24 packs is memorable. And if you don't get an enchanted, oftentimes that's a make or break experience for people. Again, take the monetary aspect out. Uh, there's one foil card, and the foiling looks good. Don't get me wrong, but because there's one in every pack, it starts to get a little bit passe. And so I think when you can juice it with something every 4 to 6 packs, I think that'll give it a little bit more oomph and more make it more memorable. For what I don't want to see brought to the game, I do not want to see sideboards, and I do not want to see, at least very much, and maybe not at all, I don't want to see interaction on your opponent's turn. In Magic terms, I don't want to see counter spells.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying. I don't want to have to ask my opponent permission to play my cards. Now, if they remove my card from the table, all good, got no problem with that. And some will say it's two sides of the same coin. Maybe it is, but I want to know psychologically that I got to play the card that was in my hand and put it on the table, and I made you do something about it. At least I got to see that enchanted be played or turned into ink. Enchanted makes the very best ink. I'm telling you right now,
Best ink.
best ink around. But yeah, those are two things that I would like to continue to see stay away from the game.
Okay. All right.
When I did play Magic, I loved counter spells. Those
Of
were my
course you did.
favorite.
Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you enjoy counter spells?
I loved blue.
Well, we've only got one co-host now. Daniel, how do you feel about doing a co-host?
I think you might be that one co-host.
Yeah, that could be.
Rebekah, what are your
Nice.
thoughts?
As far as what I'd like to see in the game, I actually was just having a conversation about this recently with someone on Discord, and colorless cards I think would be really interesting to see in the game. And I know that there's something like that in Magic, but I love the Duel Links. I was so excited that those made it in the game. I really loved that. And of course, that's very restrictive. But then having some cards that were colorless that could be slotted into any deck, I think would be really interesting. And of course, there's from a game design perspective, I'm sure there's lots to consider with how you would handle something like that. But and then somebody said, well, thematically, how could that work? And I'm like, oh, it's because on the edge of the realm of Lorcana and the void, the color from the ink is being drained, and it's encroaching on the realm. And so the Illumineers have to go out there and so they could make it work with the story. It could totally work. And so that's something I think that would be fun to see. As far as what I wouldn't want to see, there's nothing that comes to mind. I mean, if I could make discard go away completely, that'd be great. That's
So are you not playing in the next set champs then, or
right?
Yeah.
Daniel.
Well, first off, on your interesting take, right? I mean, Fabled is, is that gonna bring us back in time, right? To,
There
the
you go.
beginnings, right? Pre, a Lorcana, and is there a ink color, right? That is all powerful. I don't know. Yeah, but could be interesting. I think something that I think the short answer for me always has to be, what does the junior competitive experience look like?
Yes.
That seeing that come to fruition in the next year is pretty critical to how much I think time and investment Lily and I put into the game. So I think that's critical for me. In terms of like what I don't want to see come in, it's my first TCG, right? So it's hard for me to have. Obviously, I hear a lot. I see a lot of the dialogue and conversations. You know, perhaps it's simply this, right? It's this. It's more of a community thing, right? Is that I hope the community continues to feel empowered to have a voice. We all collectively, um, we are the game, right? We shape the game, and so I think I would hope that we don't ever hit a point where we feel like our voice isn't there. That would be a really tragic moment. So not quite in the same, I think, vein of what you're looking for, but I think that just really for me in terms of what would something that would really dampen this experience, right? I think is if all these wonderful voices and our stories get lost. Right?
Yeah. Daniel, something you said regarding Fabled and kind of seeing that image sparked a thought. Chris, I actually want to flip the table here and kind of direct a question to you. Looking at Fabled, does the image that they released for that, does that get you excited about the set? Do you have any kind of a emotional response to that, or were you kind of ambivalent towards it?
So I think it's kind of it's more the nostalgia factor for me. Looking at it, it's like, okay, yeah, that looks a little more classic Disney, and so you kind of get that feel that it's going to be like, like you're saying, kind of back to the origins, back to the roots of, of animation and the, the old Disney, I guess, if you will. Now it's not as like dynamic and as exciting as, the Jafar set or even, Shimmering Skies or anything like that. Which it's easy to look at those, especially, the Enchanteds for some of these past sets where, you look at it and it's just like this, blast of color and, and it's just amazing to look at. You kind of have to wonder, what is that set going to look like? Is it going to be a little more toned down? How are they going to keep it interesting? Even though it's not, at least for now, doesn't look like the huge dynamic art. But I think, to Rebekah's point, I think if they have, kind of a good enough storyline behind it, if it is a return to the simple, there is a colorless time or something like that. I think that would be interesting to really build up more of the lore around the game. Because they do that a little bit, right? Every set, they kind of have a little bit of lore that they kind of, weave into it. But yeah, it could be interesting to kind of flip it a little bit and make it more about the lore than, about the, the art of the set or whatever it is.
Yeah.
The nostalgia that you mentioned, I think, is what intrigues me the most, is because when people see that, to me, it's almost has a little bit of like a Main Street vibe, like where you go back to an older time that I think a lot of people have some nostalgia for, and because it's such a deviation from the first 8 sets that we've seen,
Right.
Mm-hmm.
as soon as I saw it, I'm like, whoa. Okay, yeah, Jafar, whatever. Give me Fabled. Like that's where my gaze is, and it's really unfortunate because the Reign of Jafar sounds like it could be a cool set, and I'm like, yep, it'll be fine. We're gonna take down Jafar multiplayer. Yeah, give me Fabled. Like that, and
Funny.
I. So all that to say, I hope they keep doing that a little bit. Not to spoil the new set's thunder, but give us little teasers to look forward to keep our attention, even in the midst of what we have. And it's not a ton. We're not just there's not a deluge of spoilers. It's that one single image. That's enough.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. Hope we see more of that.
I do think that there's a place for them to really lean into more of the lore, right? And the story of Lorcana, like with that. And even as far as like dropping those little hints now and then, like anytime that they would post like during reveal season, they'll do that with like a little like bit of lore in the caption, or they'll post those little stories like on the official Discord or anything like that. Like, I know that's not for everybody in the community, but there's a huge part of the community that is here for that lore.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I think, is something that makes Disney Lorcana actually so different from a lot of other trading card games out there, is because Disney is all about telling stories, and Ryan Miller has talked about that a lot. And that's part of what they wanted to like have as part of the like DNA of this game, is storytelling. And so I think there's so much more opportunity for them to lean into that part of the game.
Yeah, I agree. There was a content creator in the early days, and I think they stopped, but they had a website where they were using the glimmers, right, to create fan fiction essentially, right? And
That's cool.
it's sad to see that they haven't really. It was very early days. I think set 1, set 2. I've recently stumbled on a Chinese content creator channel where they're recreating, like, I think the one we saw was like they're recreating the Lion King, right? And they're telling the stories by using the cards, and so like that's fun, right? And they start with like Pride Rock location, Pride Lands, and then they ended. Yeah, so it was a fun way of them kind of showing off their collection and their enchanted Pride Rock card. But I thought that was really fun to see. Just again, there's so much room for creativity. That storytelling piece is really powerful.
Yeah, definitely. Well, hey y'all, I really appreciate y'all spending some time with me tonight. I can't thank you enough. I've loved it. It's been so much fun having y'all on. And Daniel and Rebekah, having y'all back on, and Scott, our first timer there. Thank you for sharing all your thoughts and everything about stuff. Okay, so I do want to end with the same 3 questions that I ask everybody. And Rebekah and Daniel, you have to give different answers than you did before. If you
I don't remember what
answers.
I said before.
Okay, well then it doesn't matter, right? No. Okay, so first off, now this one it's easy to change. So favorite ink and card right now. Rebekah, you want to start us off?
I'll go first. So I think that my favorite right now is Mirabelle, the singer. So she's the 3-drop. She's a dual ink, amber and amethyst. So that's kind of cheating, I guess. So 2 inks, but the whole Madrigal and Kanto deck, amethyst, amber, I'm actually loving playing that. So that's my favorite for right now.
Nice. Scott, how about you?
So favorite color right now is amber, because it has some of my favorite cards, and I've played Lily Fossa for so long. Piglet, Pirate Captain, or the Piglet Pirate Captain, the Rapunzel, the Mufasa, those cards. But my favorite card right now is the new Queen, and having her dance on the tears of my opponents as I score from their discards. So yeah, I call the deck Disco Queen because she does a little turn.
I love that.
All right, Daniel, how about you?
I think amber is still one of my favorite colors, and I think it's a classic, right? I mean, it's exciting to see Steel Song, right? I think find some legs again, and so I mean, what is Steel Song without Ariel? So
this is true, or the Cindy. Yeah.
Mm.
All right, cool. Okay, favorite Disney movie and why? Daniel, why don't you start us off this time?
I'll go first. Yeah, I don't know if I said this on last time. I think I'll just say it's one that I've been able to rewatch with the girls recently is Meet the Robinsons, right? And so that's a a low key one, I think, for a lot of folks, kind of like Atlantis, right? Or Treasure Planet. But I just love the story behind that. I really actually live a lot of my life right around being that curiosity and right keep moving forward. And so there's such a wonderful story there, and there's some really fun characters that I hope one day make into Lorcana.
Yep. All right, Scott, how about you?
As a whole, favorite movie's got to be Emperor's New Groove.
Nice.
Yeah, the humor, the cast, and the voice acting. Love Yzma and Kronk. The transformations. Emperor's New Groove.
Nice. You'll like the fact that my son, when we went to Disney last year, the only thing he really wanted to do, I mean, besides rides, was find the shoulder pals of the Kronk angel and
Yeah.
demon. He was looking everywhere for them. We finally found them, and he was so happy.
Funny.
But yeah, he's got those sitting on his.
We need those
on
in
his shelf.
Lorcana.
Yeah,
I know, right?
How about merch at all? Give me Lorcana merch, any of it, all of it.
Says
Give
the guy
me
wearing
everything.
the Lorcana hat there. So
this is my most prized possession when it comes to Lorcana. Get on my desk. I can buy this.
It's true.
So yeah, like I the one thing I wanted from DLC is like, give me the hat. I will sell out for the hat, whatever I got to do. So.
Nice. All right, Rebekah, how about you?
I probably said Encanto last time. I can't remember if I did or not.
It's a great movie.
I'm gonna say it again because that's how good it is. Like literally, like 2 weeks ago, I was like listening to the soundtrack in my car and like crying because I'm just like the story. It just gets me every time. With the family, and it's so colorful and vibrant, and the songs are great. I love it. So Encanto is definitely one of my favorites, especially of like more like modern, like more recent Disney movies. Definitely favorite.
Yeah, it's interesting. It was a very different kind of movie. It wasn't the usual like, oh, everybody, there's this huge problem, and then the prince or princess comes in and saves the day, or something like that. It's like at the end you're like, okay, this family is broken. They need to fix things, and it's still got that kind of redemption arc there at the end. But anyway, I'll stop talking about that. So, I like the movie too, in case you can't tell.
It's so good. Yes.
But okay, and then last question is for all of you. Where can people find Vox Lorcana, and where and when can they expect to hear from y'all?
Take it away, Scott.
They can find us basically on YouTube at Vox Lorcana, on Twitter at Vox Lorcana, on Blue Sky at Vox Lorcana, Twitch at Vox Lorcana. We're kind of like Visa, we're everywhere you want to be. Not quite on all the socials because I fail miserably where Rebekah succeeds so well, which is Instagram. So if Rebekah wants to create a Vox account over there, great.
There is one. We don't post on it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
We're on Instagram apparently. I knew that. Was that from the beginning? Have we always had that?
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Scott, and I'm an idiot. So yeah, and then I am at Cypher 1000 on Blue Sky. That is my current social haunt.
Okay. And Rebekah, how about you on Instagram?
Yeah, mostly Instagram at Rebekah Quests, and then also on Blue Sky as well. And that's where I mostly hang out.
And Daniel?
All socials, but most active on Blue Sky and Twitter or X.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then for the show specifically, it's the first Wednesday of every month, and it streams live to YouTube and Twitch for right now. So either of those platforms, you can tune in live.
Next show will be Wednesday, May 7th, 8 p.m. Pacific.
Awesome. Perfect. All right. Well, like I said, thank y'all so much for spending some time with me tonight. I really appreciate it. And
Thanks, Chris.
yeah, we'll see you around the community.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks, Chris.
Well, thanks for joining me for my chat with the Vox Lorcana crew. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure to like, follow, or rate this episode on your platform of choice. If you'd like to find out more about the show, head over to LorcanaChats.com. And if you want to contact us, you can reach us at LorcanaChats@gmail.com. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.